Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. Got 16 articles for you, and all the URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. We'll start off here with BizPack Review. I've got some updates on the bombing that took place over in Manchester, UK. This first one here says, suicide bomber caused bloody carnage at Ariana Grande's concert as more photos and videos surface. A suicide bomber caused the carnage Monday night, where at least 22 fans attending an Ariana Grande concert were killed, and at least another 59 were injured at United Kingdom's Manchester Arena. Chief Constable Ian Hopkins announced at a press conference early Tuesday that the bomber was carrying an improvised explosive device, causing this atrocity. He was carrying a dirty bomb that was full of nails and glass. Videos and tweets claiming to be from an Islamic State soldier taking responsibility for the attack after the attack. A video claiming to be from an Islamic State soldier took responsibility for the attack and claimed this is only the beginning. Smiles and happy faces were replaced with tears and screams in the blink of an eye. Witnesses reported seeing nuts and bolts flying everywhere after the device detonated. The scene showed scores of bloody, screaming young people running for their lives. Ariana Grande had just finished her last song and left the stage when a huge explosion sounded, witness Evie Brewster told the Daily Mail. Suddenly, everybody started screaming and running for the exit. We could hear the police and ambulance sirens. It was terrifying. There were thousands of people trying to get out at once. They were all screaming and crying. The whole place smelled smoky and burnt. The explosion sounded like it was inside the building somewhere. Mullen posted on her Facebook page about witnessing the horrifying scene of people with missing body parts running for cover. Put out this, I'm not sure if it's a tweet or if it was on Facebook or where this was, but it says, just out of the Ariana Grande concert in Manchester, I thought we would leave seconds before the last song finished in order to get home quicker, instead of waiting longer for a taxi. As we were leaving, a bomb or explosion went off centimeters in front of me. People's skin, blood, and feces were everywhere, including in my hair, on my bag. I'm still finding bits of God knows what in my hair. I'm fine and back in the hotel. I hope everyone involved and in front of me is okay. We were being told it was system, but I can assure you it was not. You never ever expect these things to happen to you, but it proves it can happen to anybody. That sound, those who were running around clueless with body parts and bits of skin missing, will not be leaving my mind anytime soon, or the minds of those involved. Again, hope everyone is all right. I'm very, very lucky to be where I am just now. Videos of the panic and devastation flooded social media. And there is a video here that says video purports to show the exact moment of the explosion. If you want to pull that up and watch that, there's a couple of them there. There's some tweets that people put out with pictures of some of the mayhem that transpired. Article is off of Breitbart. Give the hamster a chance to catch up here. It says Kassam says a very real war on women arrived in Manchester, England last night. Teddy bears, tears, candles, cartoons, murals, mosaics, flowers, flags, projections, hang tags, balloons, wreaths, lights, vigils, scarves, and more. These are the best solutions the Western world seems to come up with every few months when we are slammed by another Islamist terrorist attack. Our own sickness. If the words above look familiar, it's because they are. They're the same words I wrote on March 23rd of 2016, just over 1 year ago, after coordinated suicide bombing attacks in the NATO European Union capital of Brussels, Belgium, which left 32 dead and 340 injured. Last night, another 22 people died, and at least another 60 have been injured at a former Disney star's concert in Manchester, England. An audience predominantly comprised of young girls should haunt even the most callous of critics and the most relativists of liberals, but it won't. Already we have witnessed large news sites demanding Britain refuse to change its approach to terrorism and extremism. Just keep sucking it up. Friends and family die. After all, according to London's mayor, terrorism is part and parcel of everyday urban life, right? All of it ultimately is a distraction. I don't know if it's meant to be or not, but it is a massive distraction from the facts of this case and the reality of European life today. Let's take 2017 alone so far. Yesterday marked the 142nd day of 2017. There have been at least 15 attempted terrorist attacks on European, British, or West Russian soil, killing dozens and injuring hundreds. That's one attack attempted every 9 days in Europe. Think about that. Every 9 days. In the meantime, the independent websites want us to carry on exactly as before. I suggest we don't carry on exactly as before. In fact, I suggest we do away with the trite keep calm and carry on mindset that's been adopted by hipsters and tourist tat-tellers. Instead, I suggest we look back in history a little further with this scourge. St. Augustine of Hippo, not to be confused with hominous St. Augustine of Canterbury, who brought Christianity to England, once said, "Hope has two beautiful daughters. Their names are Anger and Courage. Anger at the way things are, and courage to see that they do not remain the way we are." This is our new mantra. This is our new slogan. This is our new way of life. For every news, or try that again, for every third time's charm, for news sources like The Independent, the ostensible fight for defense of multiculturalism is even more important than the news story itself, let alone pro-security positions. Over the past 16 hours, The Independent has published and promoted at least 7 separate articles targeting the critics of mass migration or lax security. I cannot for 1 second imagine that being the editor and having the callousness to shout across the newsroom Farage for what he said on Fox, while young girls are still bleeding in hospitals in England. Read their article, by the way, and find anything wrong with what Mr. Farage told Tucker Carlson last night. Terror attacks are now political footballs for the left, while they, without scintilla of self-awareness or irony, accuse the right for partisan gain. How heartless does someone have to be otherwise to tweet something like this? David Levitt tweeted, "Multiple confirmed fatalities at Manchester Arena. The last time I listened to Ariana Grande, too." Here's a small insight into the mind of the author of that tweet, David. Context. Scroll up a little bit more here. It says, "We know now that girls as young as 8 died in the terror attack in Manchester last night." Let me back up a little bit. I wanted you to know a little bit more about David Levitt. He put out a tweet saying the only thing more aggravating than the ending of Girls HBO is that we still have Donald Trump as president. What is wrong with that man? Now we know the girls as young as 8 years old died in the terror attack in Manchester last night. We know in neighboring communities, young girls are targeted, groomed, and raped by Pakistanis more often than not Muslim men living in the United Kingdom. And while the political left hurls accusations of a war on women at the right for refusing to accept taxpayer subsidies of contraception or abortion. The real war on women is taking place in British towns and cities, conducted by fellow travelers of the high chiefs of multiculturalism. We must protect our beautiful daughters with this beautiful daughters of St. Augustine courage and anger. Anyone who cannot agree to this basic statement should find no support in public life. The next article is also off of Breitbart. Let the hamster catch up. 22 dead, injured. Youngest victim 8 years old after suicide bomb at the UK Ariana Grande concert. "22 people have been confirmed dead and around 120 others are injured following reports of multiple explosions after an Ariana Grande concert in Manchester in the north of England on Monday evening. Greater Manchester Police originally said there had been a number of fatalities and others injured at the Manchester Arena, where Grammy-nominated pop singer Ariana Grande was performing. 19 people were confirmed dead as of 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The accounts posted to social media show convoys of ambulances moving to the center of Manchester as thousands of music fans fled the Manchester Evening News Arena. And there was an update. It says, may threat level to critical, ready to deploy army on the streets. Operation Temperer is now in force. In a televised statement from Downing Street, Prime Minister Theresa May said the UK's terrorism threat level has been raised from severe to critical. ITV notes this level means a terrorist attack is considered imminent. It is a possibility that we cannot ignore that there is a wide group of individuals linked to this attack, said May. She said the high threat level means there will be additional support available to police as they work to keep us safe. Operation Temperer, May stated, Operation Temperer is a plan formulated after the Paris massacre, once considered secret by the British government, that could put up to 5,000 soldiers on the streets in the event of a major terrorist attack. Specifically stated that initiating Operation Temperer meant that the protection of key sites would be handed over to military personnel instead of police, freeing up police officers for other duties. You might also see military personnel deployed at certain events, such as concerts and sports matches, helping the police to keep the public safe, the Prime Minister explained. In all circumstances, members of the armed forces who are deployed in this way will be under the command of police officers. I do not want the public to feel unduly alarmed, she emphasized. We have faced a serious terrorist threat in our country for many years. The operational response I have just outlined is a proportionate and sensible response to the threat that our security experts judge we face. I ask everyone to be vigilant and to cooperate with and support the police as they go about their important work. Chester and the spirit of Britain is far mightier than the sick plots of depraved terrorists. That is why terrorists will never win, and we will prevail. Another update says Morrissey, politicians are unafraid, but they are never the victims. Singer Morrissey, who hails from Manchester and was celebrating his birthday in town when the news of the bomb attack broke, wrote a furious Facebook post in which he extricated British politicians for leaving the people at risk while they enjoy security protection. The anger is monumental. For what reason will this ever stop? Morrissey asked before calling everyone from the mayor of Manchester to the Queen of England on the carpet. Says such attacks will not break us, but her own life is lived in a bulletproof bubble, and she inevitably does not need to identify any young people today in Manchester morgues Also, will not break us means that the tragedy will not break her or her policies on immigration. The young people of Manchester are already broken, thanks all the same, Theresa. Sadiq Khan says London is united with Manchester, but he does not condemn Islamic State, who have claimed responsibility for the bomb. The Queen receives absurd praise for her strong words against the attack, yet she does not cancel today's garden party at Buckingham Palace, for which no criticism is allowed in the Britain of free press. Mayor Andy Burham says the attack is the work of an extremist. An extreme what? In modern Britain, everyone seems petrified to officially say what we all say in private. But they are never the victims. How easy to be unafraid when one is protected from the line of fire. The people have no such protections. It says man with knife and baseball bat arrested at vigil in Birmingham. The Sun reports the police swooped on a suspected knifeman armed with a baseball bat in Birmingham as vigil was being held for victims of the Manchester terrorist attack. A witness reported loud shouting and armed police officers announcing a security alert. Another update. Manchester United players observe months before practice. Play in Europa League final on Wednesday. We are all very sad about the tragic events last night. We cannot take out of our minds and our hearts the victims and their families. We have a job to do, and we will fly to Sweden to do that job. It is not fly with the happiness that we've always had before a big game. I know even during my short time here that people of Manchester will pull together as one, said team manager Jose Mourinho. ITV reports that Manchester City manager Pep, his wife, and 2 children attended the Ariana Grande. They are all said to be. Another update. The tower in Dubai lit with Union Jack for Manchester victims. And there's a picture of that. Very striking. Another update. Police confirm terror suspect is 22-year-old Salman Abedi. Two searches carried out in the Whalley Range and Fallow Field areas of Manchester. Latest statement from Chief Constable Ian Hopkins says, I can start by once again passing out on our heartfelt sympathies to all the innocent people caught up in last night's despicable act. We now have a team of specially trained family liaison officers who are supporting families. There's been much speculation and names of those who may have been killed in the media and social media. We accept that this is inevitable. However, we ask that people allow police and coroner to release the names once the families are ready and appropriately supported. As you would expect, the police response to this Manchester has been significant as we support people to go about their daily business. Part of this response has been has seen us arrest 23-year-old man in connection with the attack, and we have also carried out 2 warrants, one in Fallowfield, that included a controlled explosion to enable safe entry. We understand that feelings are very raw right now and people are bound to be looking for answers. However, now more than ever, it is vital that our diverse communities in Greater Manchester stand together and do not tolerate hate. We have been visited by the Prime Minister and we have taken them through the emergency response so far and what we plan to do in the future days. I can confirm the man carrying out last night's atrocity has been named as 22-year-old Salman Abedi. However, he has not yet been formally identified, and I wouldn't wish, therefore, to comment further. The priority remains to establish whether he was acting alone or as part of a network. And this is the last one I'll read. There's a whole bunch more if you want to know more, but this one says Salman Abedi confirmed as Manchester bomber. The AP News agency has confirmed previous reports over the identity of the Manchester attacker, saying British authorities had named him as Libyan origin British citizen 23-year-old Salman Abedi. So if you want to read more on that, you can pull that article up. The third one down on the list, it's Breitbart Port Explosion Manchester Arena Ariana Grande gig. So wow, just wow. Now moving on to other things. This one is off of the Conservative Tribune. Kim Jong-un calls latest missile to be tested combat ready. State media announced Monday that Kim Jong-un had pronounced the intermediate range missile tested by North Korea on Sunday as combat ready. Yonhap reports the launch of the ground-to-ground Pukesong, that's how it's pronounced, 2 from near the city of Pukchang came 1 week after North Korea launched what it said was another new missile, the Hwasong-12. Reuters also said that Korean Central News Agency reported reliable late-stage guidance of the warhead, meaning its weapons were becoming more accurate. NA also said that Kim had called the Pukesong-2 a successful strategic weapon. The test comes just days before the UN Security Council is supposed to meet behind closed doors to discuss North Korea's recent spate of missile tests in the United States, South Korea, and Japan. The council is generally about as effective as a homeopathic medicine. It's become clear that Kim will back with a very strong finger wagging in the way that his father did. This means a containment strategy with actual consequences for the Kims might be in the offing, although I wouldn't hold my breath. The latest infraction of the numerous UN resolutions and sanctions aimed at Kim's horror show of a regime also comes as a rebuke to newly elected South Korean President Moon Jae-in to reach out to Pyongyang and had allegedly been rethinking the deployment of the THAAD anti-missile system in North Korea. I will try to solve the security crisis urgently, Moon said in his inauguration speech less than 2 weeks ago, according to the Sydney Morning Herald. If needed, I will fly straight to Washington. I will also go to Beijing and Tokyo, Pyongyang in the right circumstances. That olive branch seems to have been promptly incinerated by 2 launches of, whoops, hang on. Seems to have been promptly incinerated by 2 launches of the 2 types of missiles. One assumes Moon is rethinking that trip to Pyongyang as well as his skepticism of the THAAD. And the page jumped. Get that back under control. The world cannot be held hostage by a low-rent madman who seems intent on firing off missiles on a weekly basis. It's time. Well, try that again. It is time that Kim's regime is contained once and for all. The next article, journalism. Says Trump says new possibilities can lead to peace in the Middle East. In a region seething with generations of hate, President Donald Trump was upbeat about the future on Monday as he visited the home of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. During the visit, Netanyahu gave Trump a 150-year-old Bible as a present. There are many things that can happen now that could never happen before, Trump said, explaining that the new level of partnership could make possible lasting peace that has eluded the Middle East since the formation of Israel in 1948. I've heard it's one of the toughest deals of all, But I have a feeling we will get there eventually, I hope, Trump said. There's a lot of love out there. Of his stay in Saudi Arabia, Trump said Saudi King Salman wants to see great things in the world. We are willing to work together. I believe that a new level of partnership is possible and will happen, he said. Netanyahu praised Trump for being the first sitting president to visit the Western Wall. People of Israel applaud you for it, he said. Netanyahu also thanked Trump for the change on U.S. policy on Iran. How much we appreciate your bold decision to act against the use of chemical weapons in Syria, and how much we appreciate the reassertion of American leadership in the Middle East. Israel and America together can roll back Iran's march of aggression and thwart Iran's unbridled ambition to become a nuclear weapons state, he said. Netanyahu said he shared Trump's hope for peace. It won't be simple, but for the first time in many years, and Mr. President, for the first time in my lifetime, I see real hope for change, Netanyahu said. Trump had already broken a barrier by making the first ever direct flight from Rajah, the Saudi capital, to Tel Aviv. The Arab leaders you met yesterday could help change the atmosphere and set the conditions for peace, Netanyahu said. These are great signs on your historic visit that I think has echoed down the ages. The next article, the hamster catches up here. This is off of the Sleuth Journal. It says, is Puerto Rico's economic collapse a ploy by liberals to permanently shift the balance of power in Congress? Next month, citizens of Puerto Rico are going to vote on statehood, and the absolutely devastating economic collapse that is gripping the island could be enough to push the pro-statehood forces over the edge to victory. Of course, Congress has the final say on whether Puerto Rico becomes a state or not, but it is going to be very difficult to deny Puerto Rico's 3.4 million resident statehood if they strongly insist that they want it. Needless to say, if Puerto Rico becomes the 51st U.S. state, that would greatly benefit the Democrats because the population of Puerto Rico is very liberal. It does not get to vote in presidential elections, but they do help select the nominees for both parties. In 2016, 764 votes were cast in the Democratic caucus held in Puerto Rico, and only 36,660 votes were cast in the Republican primary. As a state, it is doubtful whether Puerto Rico would send any Republican lawmakers to Washington for decades to come. So if Puerto Rico becomes a state, the Democrats would add 2 new senators and probably 4 or 5 representatives. Puerto Rico would be the 30th largest state in the entire country, and so it would instantly have power than 21 other U.S. states. The upcoming vote on June 11th is going to be extremely important, and pro-statehood forces are working very hard to get a positive result. The following information about the referendum in June comes from Wikipedia, and it says, the fifth referendum will be held on June 11th of 2017 and will offer 2 options, statehood, free association. It will be the first referendum not to offer the choice of Commonwealth. Newly elected Governor Ricardo Rossello is strongly in favor of statehood for Puerto Rico to help develop the economy and help to solve our 500-year-old colonial dilemma. Colonialism is not an option. It's a civil rights issue. 3.5 million citizens seeking an absolute democracy, he told the news media. Include an additional $10 billion per year in federal funds, the right to vote in presidential elections, higher Social Security and Medicare benefits, and right for its government agencies and municipalities to file for bankruptcy. The latter is currently prohibited. At approximately the same time as the referendum, Puerto Rico's legislators are also expected to vote on a bill that would allow the governor to draft a state constitution and hold elections to choose senators and representatives to the federal Congress. Puerto Rico has been suffering through a nightmarish economic recession that never seems to end. The island was recently forced to declare the equivalent of bankruptcy because it's faced with $123 billion in debt and pension obligations. At this moment, 46% of the residents of Puerto Rico are living below the poverty line. The unemployment rate is 11%, and the authorities just announced that another 179 public schools will be closing down. Argue that the Obama administration could have done much more to alleviate the economic problems in Puerto Rico, but that it purposely chose not to do so. Why? Well, the worse economic conditions get in Puerto Rico, the better it is for pro-statehood forces. Puerto Ricans are being told that becoming a state is the key to Puerto Rico's long-term economic future. And at this point, many are willing to do just about anything to get economic suffering to end. The following is a short excerpt from the New York Times article entitled, "Amid Puerto Rico's Fiscal Ruins, a New Push for Statehood." And it says, a vigorous push for statehood was a central campaign promise of Governor Ricardo Rossello, age 38, who was inaugurated in January. Next month, he will ask residents to vote in a non-binding referendum for statehood as part of a long-term fix for a Commonwealth facing a period of severe austerity that is likely to include shuttering public schools, slash pensions, and crimped investments in public health. The island remains in the grip of recession that has lingered last decade. Could it be possible that this is what liberals have wanted all along? Could it be possible that that Obama and his minions saw Puerto Rico as peace that could be used to permanently shift the balance of power in Congress? Of course, if Puerto Rico becomes a state, for presidential elections as well. In the end, it will be Congress that decides what the fate of Puerto Rico will be. But if the people of Puerto Rico truly want to become the 51st state, it's hard to deny them that opportunity indefinitely. Last year, at their national conventions, the Democrats and the Republicans both took the position that the citizens of Puerto Rico should be able to make this decision for themselves. But once faced with a final decision, it is inevitable that many Republican members of Congress would be opposed to statehood. Personally, I believe that either independence or free association is better for Puerto Rico. And let's hope that the people of Puerto Rico choose that direction. But when people are really hurting, they will often grasp any sort of olive branch that is being offered to them. And right now, the progressives are really pushing statehood. Of course, for strategists on the left, not to help the suffering people of Puerto Rico. The game is complete domination of the U.S. political system by any means necessary. Article is off of Zero Hedge, and it says Greek authorities to launch mass confiscation of safe deposit boxes, securities, homes in tax evasion crackdown. Pay attention, because that can very well happen here. Last week, the Greek parliament once again approved more austerity to unlock withheld Greek bailout funds in Brussels, a symbolic move which has little impact without any actual follow-through, like, for example, actually imposing austerity. And while Greeks have been very good in the former promises, they have been severely lacking in the latter. That may be changing, according to Catherine Greek finance ministry inspectors are about to start seeking out owners of local undeclared properties, while the law will be amended to allow for financial products of safe deposit boxes to be confiscated electronically. Identification of taxpayers who have forgotten to declare their properties to the tax authorities is expected to be ready by year end, according to the timetable of the Independent Authority for Public Revenue. What follows then will be a wholesale confiscation by the government of any asset whose source, origins, and funding cannot be explained. The Greek tax authorities will receive support from Land Register to that end. And as by the end of September, APR inspectors are set to obtain access to companies' database and draw details on properties. Any taxpayer identified as having skipped the declaration of their assets to the tax authorities will be asked to comply and declare them, along with paying the tax and fines dictated by law. Should taxpayers fail to do so, the assets will be sequestered. Catherine also notes that the APR is also waiting for Parliament to pass regulations permitting the mass confiscation of safe deposit box contents and financial assets, such as securities. To date, the process has been conducted in handwriting and therefore particularly slow in locating assets of taxpayers who have either concealed incomes or have major debts to the state. It is about to get much more streamlined once the necessary regulations are in place for the operation of an automatic system to collect debts. The tax authorities will be able to issue online confiscation notices and immediately get their hands on contents of safe deposit boxes, confiscating cash, precious stones, jewelry, and so on. They will also be able to confiscate shares and other securities. This year, tax authorities will focus their efforts on confiscation as they try to reduce the huge pile of expired debts to the state. In this context, the Independent Authorities for Public Revenues will auction 27 properties belonging to state debtors by the end of next year, and the aim of collecting 2.7 billion euros by the end of the year from old debts and another 690 million euros of new debts from major debtors. We will share the details of the auctions with readers as some notable bargains may emerge in the coming months. The next article is off. John Brennan says, I don't do evidence during heated hearing, and it did not sit well with Trey Gowdy. Former CIA Director John Brennan appeared Tuesday before the House Select Committee on Intelligence to testify on alleged collusion between members of the Trump campaign and Russian officials. It appeared that it was marked by the tense exchange with South Carolina Republican Trey Gowdy. How that exchange was interpreted depends on the difference one sees in content and evidence of collusion, contact often being routine. Brennan said he was concerned about interaction between Trump campaign people and Russia, but it was emphatic that he did not know if there was collusion. He also got Gowdy going when he stated, I don't do evidence. Appreciate Brennan's word twisting and fired off 3 Democrats that have been suing the world widely. And that's the word that my fellow citizens understand, evidence, Gowdy fired back. Assessment is your vernacular. There is video on this if you care to pull it up and take a look at that at your leisure. It goes on, says, you and I both know that the word evident, or you and I both know what the word evidence means, Gowdy said, finally asking, it's a real simple question. Did evidence exist of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russian state actors? I encountered and I am aware of information and intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons involved in the Trump campaign that I was concerned about because of known Russian efforts on such individuals, Brennan answered. It raised questions in my mind about whether Russia was able to gain the cooperation of those individuals. I don't know whether or not such collusion, that's your term, existed, he continued. I don't know. All of a sudden, collusion is Gowdy's term? Have the Dems been pushing that narrative for months? Some on social media were quick to look past Brennan's clear admission that he does not know if there was collusion to suggest Gowdy ask a question he wants back, saying, one says here in a tweet, Trey Gowdy asking question I'm sure he wants back about Trump Russia intelligence to John Brennan. I'm not so sure about that personally, but hey, that's what this guy says. And it says, be that as it may, Gowdy continued to press Brennan on the issue, saying, did you see evidence of collusion, coordination, conspiracy between Donald Trump and the Russian state actors? Says, I saw information and intelligence that was worthy of investigation by the Bureau to determine whether such cooperation and collusion was taking place. That doesn't help us a lot. What was the nature of the information? Brennan comes back with, it's classified, and I'm happy to talk about it in a classified session. He would go on again to stress that he doesn't know if there was collusion. I don't have sufficient information to make a determination whether or not there was cooperation or complicity or collusion, Brennan said. The reaction on social media was immediate, with a response depending on the loyalty of the user. Here's a sampling of those responses from Twitter. One says, Brennan knows that Gowdy knows that Brennan is full of shit. Brennan is shaking when Gowdy is questioning. Another one says, you notice that too? Brennan, when Gowdy asks him questions, is noticeably nervous. Another political hack who had highly sensitive job. I think Brennan just gave Gowdy the exact answer Gowdy didn't want. Another one says, wow, Gowdy just walked into it with former CIA Director Brennan, asked about collusion, and Brennan said there was intel worth investigating. Expecting laser beams to shoot from Brennan's eyes and burn Gowdy into the ground. Holy shit, what a dumbass. Trey Gowdy concerned slippery Brennan, who backtracked on earlier answer. Brennan was at CIA on the last day when unmasking of more people occurred. I wish Trey Gowdy could be the new FBI director. It would make liberals more insane than they already are. Gowdy making Brennan look like a conspiring fool as usual. Gowdy keeps pushing like Rooney to get Brennan to say there is or isn't evidence of collusion. Brennan says, I don't do evidence. Another one says, he's sweating now. Gowdy is compromised. Thank God for actual patriots like Brennan. All of a sudden, it seemed that the left wasn't with their favorite word collusion anymore, and some suggested a narrative shift is underway, saying, which is why you can see the narrative shift. They're moving on from collusion, and now they're going to push obstruction of justice line. Is given no reason for this investigation. This is a witch hunt in search of a witch, and she's hiding in the woods of New York. Next one is off of Liberty Riders. Wonder who that could be. Let the hamster catch up here. I see him running in the wheel. He had to stop and snicker at that last one. Okay, this one says, the leak-filled leftist just got unplugged. Trump just got the best welcome home present of his life. Cabinet and staff have been in the stalled confirmation process. Obama relics and anti-Trump Republicans have been able to stay in Washington and leak out classified information. The most notable of these leaks recently was from the Washington Post, claiming that Comey had memos of conversations between him and President Trump, where in said handwritten memos that are based solely on memory of James Comey, the Washington Post alleged Trump had Comey to stop the Michael Flynn investigation. While it appears on memo, or try it again, while it appears that memos may exist, their content and their whereabouts were classified information that was leaked out by yet another unnamed source. But while Donald Trump has been on his first foreign tour in the Middle East, his staff has been hard at work finding the people leaking classified information from within his administration. Trump just got the best welcome home present ever. It appears that not one or two, but three White House staffers are being prepared to be fired for leaking classified information. And there's a tweet here that says, "Scoop, three White House staffers have been identified for leaking classified info. POTUS will fire multiple people when he returns to D.C." And these staffers are not out of the woods just by being fired. When asked why these staffers were being sent to the Office of Government Ethics, the response was, "This is criminal." President Trump now has the perfect welcome home present waiting for him after he has already had an incredibly successful first 2 days of his first foreign tour. The Democrats played it up like President Trump wouldn't be accepted in the Middle East, but he has shown nothing but respect and been shown nothing but respect for his strength of character. It's about time that the leaks stopped, and while three have been found, hopefully they will be the last. Needless to say, President Trump will be thrilled to continue the amazing work he has accomplished abroad at home by firing the staffers and eliminating the leaks. The next article is off of WND. It says, bombshell. Donna Brazile warned off of private eye on Seth Rich murder. Former Democratic National Committee interim chairwoman is the high-ranking DNC representative who allegedly called police and family of murdered DNC staffer Seth Rich and demanded to know why a private investigator was snooping into Rich's death, the private eye revealed to WND on Monday. The high-ranking DNC official that called the police after I inquired about Rich's case, still, veteran homicide detective Rod Wheeler told WND. Why shouldn't I reveal who it was? Was also a CNN contributor and a Hillary for America donor at that time, was caught providing Democratic Party nominee Hillary Clinton with questions that would later be asked of Clinton at a televised CNN town hall with Fox News before the election. Brazile denied leaking the questions to Clinton, but in a March 17th column for the Time magazine, she admitted doing so, saying it was a mistake I will regret. A spokesman for the Rich family has repeatedly criticized Detective Wheeler, who was hired by Rich's family in March. The staffer murderers for, well, let me try that again. Who was hired by Rich's family in March to find the DNC staffer's murderer, out the possibility that Rich may have leaked DNC emails to WikiLeaks. They recently said Wheeler a cease and desist order to stop his investigation into the murder. Reported, Rich was murdered July the 10th of 2016 near his affluent neighborhood in Washington, D.C. He was shot in the back at 4:18 a.m. while he walked home, and nothing was taken from him. He was transported to a local hospital and was pronounced dead at 5:57 a.m. on July 22nd, just 12 days after Rich's death and days before the Democratic Party convention. In leaks released 20,000 emails from DNC officials. Wheeler said in several interviews last week that a federal investigator has elaborate details about Rich's connection to WikiLeaks and is a credible source. I don't like to suggest things without saying the person's name, but I can't say that person's name because that person would be thrown under the bus. News, Sean Hannity. This person, we checked him out. We have to check him out. He's very credible. He said he laid eyes on the computer and he laid eyes on the case file. When you look at that with the totality of everything else that I've found in this case, it's very consistent for a person with my experience to begin to think perhaps there were some email communications between Seth and WikiLeaks. Wheeler told Hannity there were some problems that Seth was having on his job at the DNC right before he was killed. And the person that called the father after I called the police to get information, Brazile, That's the person that Seth was having problems with at the DNC. So connect the dots here. It's starting to all come together. Wheeler added, I don't know for sure. I don't know, as a matter of fact, if the emails went out to WikiLeaks or anybody else, but it sure appears that way. Brazil resigned as a contributor from CNN on October the 14th after it was revealed in hacked emails from John Podesta's account that she leaked questions to Clinton campaign before CNN-sponsored events with candidates. We are completely uncomfortable with what we have learned about her interactions with the Clinton campaign while she was a CNN contributor. CNN spokesperson Laurel Petrapis said in October. Trump blasted Brazil in the campaign trail for using her position at the cable news network to collude with Clinton. Speaking of draining the swamp, Donna Brazil did it again. Trump said just weeks before the election, WikiLeaks Today, she gave a question to a debate to Hillary Clinton that was a couple weeks ago. Happened again, but this time far worse. She gave the question to a debate to Hillary Clinton. And get this to scroll a little bit here. There we go. Wheeler initially refrained from revealing the identity of DNC officials who called Rich family to inquire about the detective snooping, but said he felt less compelled to stay quiet about Brazil's identity after what he believed to be an unrelenting assassination of his character by the Rich family spokesman. The spokesman, Democratic political crisis consultant Brad Bauman, extricated Wheeler for not eliminating the possibility that Rich leaked emails accusing the veteran detective of fabricating his claims in a desperate attempt for media attention. I don't think at this point, given Detective Wheeler's lack of credibility, that I'm going to dignify any accusations that he makes with any sort of discussion. I'm sorry. He added that anyone who believes Rich may have leaked DNC emails deserves a place in hell. Concluded after months of extensive investigation that the idea that Rich was killed during a robbery is implausible. He maintains that his motivation to solve the case and find Rich's murderer has nothing to do with politics. I hope, jumped a little bit here. I hope people understand this. I'm not involved at all with the political side of any of this. I am really not. My one focus is on finding a murderer, he told WND. That's my only focus. Now, if that murderer is neighborhood knucklehead who had a gun and killed him that night, then that is who I want to capture, he said. Then the story ends for me and I find him. If that murderer is someone who worked with him on his job, then that is who I want to capture. Brazil called the possibility that Rich leaked DNC emails shameful on Sunday. Seth Rich was hard worker American. This desire to scar Seth's legacy to his country and party is shameful, the former DNC chair tweeted. While critics dismissed the idea that Rich's murder might be linked to the DNC in the midst of a highly confidential campaign as conspiracy and fake news, talk radio host Rush Limbaugh on Monday said the Americans are determined to uncover the truth about Rich's murder. It's now starting to get legs that Seth Rich was murdered. It was a contract hire killing because he was leaking info to WikiLeaks. He was the one. He may have been a Bernie supporter, and the only colluding and rigging here, folks, is the Democrat Party election, Limbaugh said. Kim.com, the noted hacker, has now come forward and said he was working with Seth Rich to get the documents to WikiLeaks. Conspiracy theory status, but it won't go away. It just won't go away. That's about as much as I can say right now. Kim.com is the Twitter handle for the hacker described as an entrepreneur, innovator, gamer, artist, internet freedom fighter, and father of five. He is a German-Finnish internet entrepreneur. Mega Upload. On May the 20th, Kim.com tweeted, "I knew Seth Rich. I know he was the WikiLeaks source. I was involved." Another tweet the same day, he wrote, "I'm meeting my legal team on Monday. I will issue statement about Seth Rich on Tuesday. Please be patient. This needs to be done properly." On Sunday, Hannity called on Congress to get his murder. In a Twitter response to Kim.com that received nearly 19,000 likes, Hannity wrote, "Seth Rich murder. Comments you need to listen to. If Seth was a WikiLeaks source, no Trump-Russia collusion." Referencing comments by WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange during an August 2016 interview television program News and Shore, Assange appeared to suggest that Rich was the source of WikiLeaks. Whoops, it jumped. The source of WikiLeaks exposed DNC emails. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich appeared on Fox and Friends Sunday and called Rich's murder an assassination. Strange story now of a young man who worked for the Democratic National Committee who apparently was assassinated at 4 in the morning, having given WikiLeaks something like 53,000 emails and 17,000 attachments. That. And what does it tell you about what's going on? Because as it turns out, it wasn't the Russians. It was a young guy who I suspect was disgusted by the corruption of the Democratic National Committee. He's been killed, and apparently nothing serious has been done to investigate his murder. As WND reported Monday, a manager in Washington, D.C. bar where Rich was last spotted hours before he was shot and killed said D.C. police officers never interviewed the bar staff or requested any evidence from the bar, including the bar's surveillance video from that night, as part of an evidence of an investigation into Rich's murder. Rich is on WND's list of 33 people associated with the Clintons who have died mysteriously and often violent deaths. Next article is off of News Nuke, and it says, "Update on Seth Rich. Where there's smoke, there's fire." The theories behind Seth Rich's death have been plentiful and amplified, due in part to whistleblowing organization WikiLeaks. Just months after Rich's murder, WikiLeaks announced a $20,000 reward for any information on the murderer. Most recently, WikiLeaks retweeted the Fox and Friends story that claimed evidence Rich had correspondence with WikiLeaks. This week, Newt Gingrich, Hannity, and Kim.com all came forward to speak about Seth Rich. After making some explosive claims, Hannity offered show for a chance to tell all. On May the 21st, Assange tweeted, WikiLeaks has never disclosed a source. Sources sometimes talk to other parties, but identities never emerge from WikiLeaks. Essentially, Assange is saying, although confirmation of a source won't come from WikiLeaks and may come from a third party, say someone like Kim.com, that is, if he isn't exaggerating the enormity of his claims like he did with Hillary's emails back in November, only time will tell. Furthermore, as I researched into the story behind Rich and his murder, things started to stink. Coincidences and connections began to spring up. For instance, Rich normally threw back Bell's beer for hours without a problem. The night of his murder, Rich was uncharacteristically unsteady on his feet as he made his way out the door. Joe Capone, manager of Lou's City Bar, a haunt regularly fared by Rich, visited the White House just 6 days before the murder. Also, George Webb reports that Capone said that he was out of town the night of Rich's murder. But this article states otherwise. Those rumblings concerned the general manager of Seth's favorite bar, the last place Seth was alive. He was here just by himself that night and even asked him if he wanted to stick around and get a ride home, said Capone. He was like, "No, I'm going to be somewhere else and then I'll go home." So which is it? Was Capone out of the city, or did he offer Rich a ride home? It doesn't add up. Jennifer Palmieri, former communications director for Hillary Clinton's campaign, also shares a last name with the surgeon at MedStar, the DNC Metro Hospital closest to Bloomingdale, the neighborhood Rich was shot. A Dr. Siona Palmieri works as cardiovascular disease specialist at MedStar. Is, is it proof of any wrongdoing or motive? Of course not. It is probably coincidence. In this case, yes. It is weird, though, and it only gets weirder the deeper we go. I've had it pointed out that Washington, D.C. is an incestuous and intertwined community. Therefore, things like this will spring up. I absolutely agree with the assessment DNC, or try this again. I absolutely agree with the assessment D.C., as the swamp capital of the world, houses an overwhelming number of elite families. Of course, connections and advantages will exist, but as the saying goes, where there's smoke, there's fire. A month after Rich's murder, Brad Bauman, a professional Democrat crisis PR consultant, emerged as the family spokesman. Sure, Rich was in the DNC, and his family may have been set up with a professional PR manager, but two things. A write-up published in August of 2016 rips Bauman and his PR company, the Pastorum Group, to shreds, saying, that Mr. Joel Rich, says his father, would have found Pastorum Group simply randomly. Odd the associations and previous employment of the two founders of Pastorum Group entrenched in Hillary, Obama, and Bernie. Secondly, look at how Bauman is reacting to Gingrich, Hannity, and .com's recent claims over Rich on Twitter. Bauman puts out the following tweets. So, Newt Gingrich just proved my case. Only those with agendas or psychopaths still pushing Seth Rich conspiracy. In this case, he is both. Guess what, Kim.com? I don't buy it. I think you have an agenda or are a psychopath. Which is it? If Kim.com cared about Seth Rich, why has he been silent for so long? Why didn't he come in before? Only now to max impact. If Kim.com knew Seth, why wasn't he at the funeral? Send flowers. Tell family he was a hero. If Kim.com had one shred of evidence, he would have called family or police, not Sean Hannity first. Usually when you call people out as having zero evidence on something, it means you're pretty safe to ignore them. However, Bauman escalates the situation and attempts to call them out, trying to make their claims look less realistic and debased. If they were wrong, Bauman would have no need to respond or argue with them, but he did. To me, that speaks volumes. Is Bauman anxious about something? Speaking of being anxious, it's now revealed that ex-DNC chairwoman Donna Brazile warned off the PI investigating the murder as well. Understand Podesta's ex-wife of Tony Podesta and notable Clinton lobbyist is on the DNC Police Foundation board and close to the investigation into Seth Rich. As stated before, yes, I understand DC is incestuous and close-knit, but are these connections not startling? We learned of these people's abuse of power and corrupt nature through WikiLeaks Podesta emails, but we're supposed to believe that none of this adds up? Sorry, but no. Enter Andrew Terrahult, former DNC director of data science, who shot off this tweet last month, but since deleted it, and I wonder why. It says, Wes McKinney, TIL, a group of pandas is called an embarrassment. Panda facts. After the Rich story reignited last week, the Reddit profile Seth used came to light. Seemingly a fan of the retro Transformer series, his handle MeGrimlock4. Several things are apparent from glancing through his post history. He liked patriotism, he liked to drink beer, and bicycled avidly. And Seth really, really, really liked pandas. Andrew Terrahult, nearly full year after Rich's murder, tagged his account with a post that states a group of pandas is called an embarrassment. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And at this point, there's enough to suffocate in my opinion. Independent journalist Caitlin Johnston even confirmed that someone edited Rich's Reddit profile a full day after being discovered by internet sleuths. In the pictures below, the top image is the original unedited post made by Seth, including his email. The middle image is the altered edited post without his email address. The bottom shows the original post now deleted. So you can pull that up and take a look at that if you would care to. It says, finally, let's travel back during the election when Sanders' campaign took on a recommended staffer from the DNC, a likely DNC plant, went on to assess breach Clinton servers and campaign information acting under Bernie's campaign, which led to Sanders locked out of his own voter information ahead of important primaries. Do we really believe that Rich didn't see this attempt at framing and sandbagging Bernie? Do we really believe that Rich wasn't dead set on exposing voter fraud against Sanders and ending the corrupt DNC and the Clintons? Where there's smoke, there's fire. None of these connections equate cold, damning evidence. I understand that. However, I do hope that these odd coincidences at least make people consider alternative answers as opposed to blatant mainstream media cover-up. Plainly, if things are as rotten as they seem, evidence must come, and quickly, before the story fades back into obscurity once more, and likely for good. The next article is off of Liberty Headlines. It says, complete panic at DNC over Seth Rich links to WikiLeaks. Last week, Fox News dropped a bombshell report officially confirming by anonymous FBI sources what many had suspected for quite some time, that murdered DNC staffer Seth Rich was the WikiLeaks source for leaks, which proved that DNC was intentionally undermining the campaign of Bernie Sanders. In addition to exposing the corruption of the DNC, the leaks cost Debbie Wasserman Schultz her job as chairwoman. Of course, if it's true that WikiLeaks emails came from DNC Insider, it would end Russian hacking narrative that has been perpetuated by Democrats and the mainstream media for the past several months. Moreover, it would corroborate the confirmation that Julian Assange has offered regarding his source, namely that it was not a state actor. Meanwhile, the plot thickened a little more over the weekend when Kim.com confirmed by Twitter that he was working with Seth to get the leaked emails to WikiLeaks. Saying, I knew Seth Rich, I know he was the WikiLeaks source, I was involved. Which was followed up by the following post on 4chan's POL subgroup that high-ranking current and former Democratic Party officials are terrified of the Seth Rich murder investigation. Anons, I work in D.C. I know certain that Seth Rich case has scared the shit out of certain high-ranking current and former Democratic Party officials. This is the reason why they have backed away from impeachment talk. They know the smoking gun is out there, and they're terrified you will find it, because when you do, it will bring the entire DNC along with a couple of very big named politicians. It appears that certain DNC thugs were not thorough enough when it came time to cover their tracks. Podesta saying he wanted to make an example of the leaker is a huge smoking gun. The Post went on to claim that a smoking gun in this case is out of the hands of the conspirators, which has resulted in near open panic in DC circles. And the quote is, the behavior is near open panic. To even mention this name in DC circles will bring you under automatic scrutiny. To even admit that you have knowledge of this story puts you in immediate danger. If there was no smoke, there would be no fire. I have never in my 20 years of working in the DC scene such a panic reaction from anyone. I have strong reason to believe that the smoking gun in this case is out of the hands of the conspirators and will be discovered by anon. I know for certain that Podesta is deeply concerned. He's been receiving anonymous calls and emails from people saying they know the truth and the same with Hillary. The next article is off of BizPac Review. It says, Dem aide suspected of major security breach escapes to Pakistan for VIP level protection, relative says. And in my story that I gave yesterday was part of this. I've been reporting on this for months now. But it says a criminal suspect in an investigation into major security breach of the House of Representatives computer network has abruptly left the country and gone to Pakistan, where her family has significant assets and VIP level protection, a relative and others told the Daily Caller News Foundation investigative group. Hina Alvi, her husband Imran Awan, and his brother Abid and Jamal were highly paid shared IT administrators working for multiple House Democrats until the access to congressional IT systems was terminated February the 2nd as a result of the investigation. Capitol Police confirmed the investigation is ongoing, but no arrests have been reported in the case. The Awans are accused of stealing equipment from members' offices without their knowledge and committing serious, potentially illegal violations on the House IT network, according to the Politico. Many of the Democrats who employed the Awans are members of the House Committee on Homeland Security, the Committee on Foreign Affairs, and the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. A list of potentially compromised members is listed below in the article, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Their position gave them access to members' emails and confidential files. In addition, Imran was given the password for an iPad used by then Democratic National Committee Chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a Florida Democrat. The five came to the U.S. from Pakistan. Since the investigation became public, the Awans have abruptly moved from longtime homes in Lawton and Springfield, Virginia. Imran and Hina recently withdrew their children from schools, according to members of the Holly Elementary and Lorton Station Middle School and communities. Multiple people said Hina told them she was headed to Pakistan, where the family has significant property. Real estate records show Hina listed both the Lorton house and the apartment she owns for sale. I came to know from one of the relatives that Hina Alvi and her daughters are moved to Pakistan. Hina Alvi saying, "We have moved here in Pakistan permanently." The Awan stepmother, Samini Galani, told the DCNF. Two other sources close to the family who requested anonymity because they believe it is a national security issue also said that Hina has gone to Pakistan. Galani said in court documents, the Awan brothers have convinced Pakistani officials that they are VIPs and travel the country with a police motorcade, an assertion that seemingly gives them a major initiative to seek protection there, as well as raising questions about how the computer jockeys obtained that status. Other court documents and multiple people involved in various financial disputes with Imran told the DCNF that he was quick to represent himself as from the U.S. Congress in personal matters. The family received more than $4 million in congressional pay, yet their lifestyles in the U.S. were not overly luxurious. Galani said significant assets were stored in Pakistan. When Imran and Hina moved out of their 3,200 square foot home in Lorton, Imran told a neighbor he was moving into a home his father, who died in January, previously occupied. They lived there 9 years, the neighbor told DCNF. I saw a moving truck a month ago, and he said he was moving to his dad's house. Abid also moved out of his longtime Springfield home, the new tenants told DCNF. Galani said Abid moved into their deceased father's home with his wife and kids, and Imran moved in as well, but without his family. A third family also lives in the 2,400 square foot house, further indicating that Imran's wife and kids are unlikely to be joining him. A female African immigrant at Shaw's house said she began renting a portion of the house in April with her numerous children. That Springfield home is where Galani, the stepmother, lived with the Awan's father until his death. She fled after the brothers threatened to have her relatives in Pakistan kidnapped if she didn't cooperate in a financial scheme, she told the DCNF, echoing statements made in court documents. A large House of Representatives seal is now displayed prominently on the first floor window of the house. Imran, who has worked for Wasserman Schultz since 2005, boasted he had many contracts in the USA and Pakistan also. He also said that if I called even the whole United States police on them, he would not face consequences, Galani told the DCNF. Imran Awan threatened that he is very powerful and would use that power to have people kidnapped in Pakistan, she said in court documents. Tenants of one property Hina owns said she has been unable to pick up rent recently and has not returned calls. All contact with her turned off, the tenant said. The switch off to dealing with Imran instead was odd. Imran ordered the renters not to cooperate with law enforcement, the renters said, adding that he told him to begin making out rent in the form of a blank check and giving it to a realtor. A spokesman for Capitol Police declined to comment for this story. Wow. Be interesting to watch that unfold. The next one's off of Breitbart. It says, Feds arrest dozens of Texas Mexican mafia members. A federal grand jury returned an indictment against 37 suspected Texas Mexican mafia, called the TMM members, including TMM General Raul Ramos, charging them with conspiracy, narcotics, and firearm-related crimes. Federal, state, and local enforcement officials arrested 26 alleged members of the Texas Mexican Mafia in San Antonio late Friday, while 8 other suspects were already in custody and 3 are currently fugitives, the U.S. Attorney's Office reported. The defendants are alleged to have distributed methamphetamine and heroin since the beginning of 2015, as well as collected the dime, a 10% tax imposed by the TMM on non-members who are involved in the distribution of narcotics. Failure to pay the 10% tax can result in serious physical harm, including death. Charges contained in a federal grand jury indictment unsealed this afternoon in San Antonio are conspiracy to interfere with commerce by threats of or violence, count 1, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, count 2, possession with intent to distribute a controlled substance, count 3, use, carrying, or discharging a firearm in relation to a drug trafficking crime, count 4, the USAO said. If convicted, the defendants facing extortion conspiracy charges could face up to 20 years in federal prison. The defendant facing drug conspiracy charges or drug possession charges faced between 5 and 40 years in federal prison. The defendants who are convicted will receive an additional 10-year consecutive prison sentence if convicted of a firearm charge. The arrests were the result of an investigation into a heroin cocaine trafficking operation in San Antonio by the Drug Enforcement Administration, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Homeland Security Investigation, San Antonio Police Department, Texas Department of Public Safety, Bexar County Sheriff's Office, New Braunfels Police Department, Medina County Sheriff's Office, and the Hondo Police Department. Wow. Wouldn't you like to know how much money was wrapped up in all of that? Just to have to round these people up? I mean, not to say that it wasn't necessary, but it shouldn't have taken that much manpower. It's a drug bust. Holy smoke. Next one here is off of Liberty Headlines. Says Arizona ends income taxation on gold and silver coins. Sound money advocates rejoiced today as Arizona Governor Doug Ducey signed House Bill 2014 into law last night. The measure, which passed in the Arizona Senate on May the 10th by a margin of 16 to 13, removes all income taxation of precious metal coins at the state level. Under House Bill 2014, introduced by Representative Mark Fincham, Republican of Tucson, Arizona, taxpayers will simply back out all gains and losses on any precious metals that are in legal tender form and reported on their federal tax returns from the circulation of their Arizona adjusted gross income. If taxpayers own gold or silver to protect themselves against the devaluation of America's paper currency, thanks to the inflationary practices of the Federal Reserve, they frequently end up with a gain when exchanging those precious metals back into dollars. However, this is not necessarily a real gain in terms of gain in actual purchasing power. This gain is often a nominal gain because of the slow but steady devaluation of the dollar. Yet the government nevertheless assesses a tax. Sound Money Defense League former presidential candidate Congressman Ron Paul and Campaign for Liberty helped secure passage of HB 2014 because it begins to dismantle the Federal Reserve's monopoly on money. Arizona is helping lead the way in defending sound money and making it less difficult for citizens to protect themselves from the inflation and financial turmoil that flows from the abusive Federal Reserve System, said Stefan Gleason, director of the Sound Money Defense League. Dr. Ron Paul noted HB 2014 is a very important and timely piece of legislation. The Federal Reserve's failure to reignite the economy with record low interest rates since the last crash is a sign that we may soon see the dollar's collapse. It is therefore imperative that the law protect people's rights to use alternatives to what may soon be virtually worthless Federal Reserve notes. A few state legislators, including Utah and Idaho, have also taken steps toward eliminating income taxation on monetary metals. Other states are rolling back sales taxes on gold and silver or setting up precious metals depositories to help citizens save and transact in gold and silver bullion. So if that doesn't tell you that you need to buy some precious metals, get your money out of your savings accounts, get your money out of the bank, put it in precious metals, get you safe and bolt her to the floor someplace, and keep track of your own money before the banks fold up and take whatever you got. The next article and final one for today, this is off of Western Journalism, and it says sinkhole opens up in front of Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. Twitter users react. While President Donald Trump was traveling in the Middle East, a small sinkhole opened up directly in front of his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida on Monday. The town of Palm Beach shared the news on its Twitter account, warning the public of the sinkhole's location and size. Town of Palm Beach put out a tweet saying, sinkhole in front of Mar-a-Lago, a 4x4 sinkhole has formed on Southern Boulevard directly in front of, and then it trails off. It says utility crews got to the scene. Lane of traffic had to be closed, causing delays in the area. And there's some video. It was also reported that exploratory excavation near the sinkhole is likely to occur throughout the day. Responding to the incident, Twitter users were quick to use sinkhole for comedic comparisons, with some people linking it to the glowing orb Trump touched in Saudi Arabia. It shows him touching the orb, and they tweeted out, actions have consequences, people. Another one tweets out, a sinkhole just opened in front of President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. The orb demanded sacrifice. One user saw the sinkhole as a perfect chance to riff on one of Trump's famous campaign slogans, saying, "The swamp is draining." Trump is currently on the second leg of his first foreign trip as president. He landed in Israel on Monday, where he will attempt to broker a bigger and better deal between the Israelis and the Palestinians. After Israel, Trump will go on to Brussels to meet with the Prime Minister and then to Sicily, to participate in the annual G7 summit meetings. The president spent this past weekend in Saudi Arabia meeting with Muslim leaders from across the globe. And that's all I have for you this morning. If you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up, share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that yet. That way you'll stay informed. Have a great day.